Genesis 13. Abraham and Lot separate. Abram went from Egypt to the Negev, he, his wife, and all he had, and Lot with him. Abram was very rich in livestock, silver, and gold. He went by stages from Negev to Bethel, to the place between Bethel and Ai, where his tent had formerly been, to the site where he had built the altar. And Abram called the name of the Lord there. Now Lot, who was traveling with Abram, also had flocks, herds, and tents, but the land was unable to support them as long as they stayed together, for they had many possessions that they could not stay together. And there was quarreling between the herdsmen of Abram's flock and herdsmen of Lot's livestock. At that time the Canaanites and the Perizzites were living in the land. So Abram said to Lot, "Please, let us not have quarreling between you and me, or between your herdsmen and my herdsmen, since we are relatives. Isn't the whole land before you? Separate from me. If you go to the left, I will go to the right. If you go to the right, I will go to the left." Lot looked out and saw the entire plain of the Jordan, as far as Zoar, was well watered everywhere, like the Lord's garden and the land of Egypt. This was before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. So Lot chose the entire plain of the Jordan for himself. Then Lot journeyed eastward, and they separated from each other. Abram lived in the land of Canaan, but Lot lived in the cities on the plain and set up his tent near Sodom. Now the men of Sodom were evil, sinning immensely against the Lord. After Lot had separated from him, the Lord said to Abram, "Look, from the place where you are, look north and south and east and west, for I will give you and your offspring forever all the land you see. I will make your offspring like the dust of the earth, so that if anyone could count the dust of the earth, then your offspring could be counted. Get up and walk around the land through its length and width, for I will give it to you." So Abram moved his tent and went to live near the oaks of Mamre at Hebron, where he built an altar to the Lord. Genesis 14. Abram rescues Lot. In those days, King Amraphel of Shinar, King Arioch of Eleazar, King Chedorlaomer of Elam, and King Tidal of Goyim waged war against King Bera of Sodom, King Birsha of Gomorrah, King Shinab of Abna, and King Sheneber of Zeboim, as well as the king of Bela, that is Zoar. All of these came as allies to the Sidon Valley, that is, the Dead Sea. They were subject to Chedorlaomer for 12 years. But in the 13th year they rebelled. In the 14th year Chedorlaomer and the kings who were with him came and defeated Rephaim in Ashtaroth Karnaim, in the Zuzim and Ham, the Emim in Shaman, Kiriath Aim, and the Horites in the mountains of Seir, as far as El Paran, by the wilderness. Then they came back to invade Ishmael and Kadesh, that is Kadesh. They defeated the whole territory of the Amalekites, as well as the Amorites who lived in Hazon Tamar. Then the king of Sodom, the king of Gomorrah, the king of Admah, the king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, that is Zoar, went out and lined up for battle in the Sidon Valley, against King Chedorlaomer of Elam, King Tidal of Goyim, King Amraphel of Shinar, and King Arioch of Eleazar. 4 kings against 5. Now the Sidon Valley contained many asphalt pits, and as the king of Sodom and Gomorrah fled, some fell into them, but the rest fled to the mountains. The 4 kings took the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah, and all their food, and went on. They also took Abram's nephew Lot and his possessions, for he was living in Sodom. And they went on. One of the survivors came and told Abram the Hebrew, who lived near the oak belonging to Mamre the Amorite, the brother of Eshcol and the brother of Aner. They were bound by a treaty with Abram. When Abram heard that his relatives had been taken prisoner, he assembled his 318 trained men, born in his household, and they went in pursuit as far as Dan. And he and his servants deployed against them by night, defeated them, and pursued them as far as Hobah, to the north of Damascus. He brought back all the goods, and also his relative Lot and his goods, as well as the woman and the other people. Melchizedek's blessings. After Abram returned from defeating Chedorlaomer and the kings who were with him, the king of Sodom went out to meet him in the Sheva Valley, that is, the King's Valley. Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. He was a priest of God Most High. He blessed him and said, Abram is blessed by God Most High, creator of heaven and earth, and blessed be God Most High, who has handed over your enemies to you. And Abram gave him a tenth of everything. Then the king of Sodom said to Abram, Give me the people, but take the possessions for yourself. But Abram said to the king of Sodom, I have raised my hand in an oath to the Lord, God Most High, creator of heaven and earth, that I will not take a thread or sandal strap or anything that belongs to you, so that you can never say, I made Abram rich. I will take nothing except what the servants have eaten. But as for the share of the men who came with me, Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre, they can take their share. Genesis 15. The Abrahamic Covenant. After these events, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision. Do not be afraid, Abram. I am your shield. Your reward will be very great. But Abram said, Lord God, what can you give me, since I am childless, and the heir to my house is Eleazar of Damascus? Abram continued, Look, you have given me no offspring, so a slave born in my household will be my heir. Now the word of the Lord came to him, This one will not be your heir. Instead, one who comes from your own body will be your heir. He took him outside and said, Look at the sky and count the stars, if you are able to count them. Then he said to him, Your offspring will be that numerous. Abram believed the Lord and credited it to him as righteousness. He also said to him, I am the Lord who brought you from Ur of the Chaldeans to give you this land to possess. But he said, Lord God, how can I know that I will possess it? He said to him, Bring me a 3-year-old cow, a 3-year-old female goat, a 3-year-old ram, and a turtle dove, and a young pigeon. So he brought all these to him, cut them in half, and laid the pieces opposite each other. But he did not cut the birds in half. The birds of prey came down on the carcasses, but Abram drove them away. As the sun was setting, a deep sleep came over Abram, and suddenly great terror and darkness descended on him. Then the Lord said to Abram, Know this for certain, your offspring will be resident aliens for 400 years in the land that does not belong to them, and they will be enslaved and oppressed. However, I will judge the nation they serve, and afterwards they will go out with many possessions. But you will go to your ancestors in peace and be buried in a good old age. In the 4th generation they will return here, For the iniquity of the Amorites has not yet reached its full measure. When the sun had set and it was dark, a smoking firepot and flaming torch appeared and passed between the divided animals. On that day the Lord made a covenant with Abram, saying, I give this land to your offspring, from the brook of Egypt to the great river of Euphrates River, the land of the Canaanites, the Kenizzites, the Kadmonites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Rephaim, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Girgashites, and the Jebusites.